Today I want to talk about something a little different than creativity and writing, and that is actually something specific to my genre, which is closed-door romance. These are a few of my books, all of which are closed door, and so today I wanted to talk about that terminology, what it means, and why I have chosen to write that specific style of romance. So just to be clear on the terminology, closed-door romance means that there is no intimacy that happens on the page. It all happens behind closed doors, if it happens at all. The language can be very confusing in the romance space. You know, we talk about sweet romance or fade to black or clean, all these different things. And there's a lot of discourse, and I've read it all. Some of it makes sense to me, some of it I agree with, some of it maybe not so much. One important distinction for me, and why I always refer to my books as closed door or PG-13, and I never use the terminology clean, is that in this context, the word clean doesn't just mean that there isn't intimacy. It also means that there is no swearing and not even implied intimacy as well, which is why I want to be very clear that my books are PG-13 if we were to use movie ratings for them, and not G. So to my understanding, we could use like the logic argument. You could say all clean books are all clean romance is closed-door romance, but not all closed-door romance is clean romance. And this language is so important because of meeting reader expectations, right? So and the times in the past when my books have sort of accidentally gotten grouped in with clean books, then readers tend to be unpleasantly surprised by things that they find in them that they aren't accustomed to finding in the books that they read. For myself, and for why I write closed door, it isn't a moral or ethical stance on my part. It is simply what I am the most interested in and the most comfortable with writing. So as far as spicy books go, I do read them, I do enjoy them, and I am very much a proponent of not yucking anyone's yum. So I'm like, if you want to read books that have spice, books that don't have spice, I think there's space for all of it at the table. And I do dabble in a little bit of everything, although I will say, this is a total aside here, but when I'm writing romance, I find it hard to read any romance because there's just that natural comparison that comes. So the more I've written in these last few years, the more I've had to branch out the genres that I read and spend a lot more time in thrillers or in nonfiction, all sorts of things, because I can be inspired by it all without feeling like I'm directly comparing myself with what I'm reading if it's a little too similar to my genre. So in the books that I write, like these are a few examples of them here, I tend to like to focus on, right, like I said, I don't write the bedroom scenes, although sometimes they are implied. I like to focus on different aspects of the relationship, you know, that sort of the emotional journey of it, the character growth, the dynamics both within the relationship and with other, you know, side characters and that kind of thing. That is what's most interesting to me to write, and that's why I choose to focus on that. I also, as if you know anything about me and my books, I also really like to focus on the setting, on where the book takes place, because my whole sort of brand is catching flights and feelings. So I enjoy much more so focusing on like, what are they eating in Turkey, you know, or what sites are they seeing in London or whatever, or wherever the story is taking place. And also a big inspiration behind this is that, you know, I grew up watching the 90s and 2000s rom-coms, and that sort of same PG-13 vibe is very much what, you know, what my own background is, but also just what I really enjoy trying to translate onto the page. It's sort of the template that I reach for. So they're similar to what I write. We're talking about stories that are, you know, heartwarming, funny, emotionally satisfying, something that, you know, probably if you were like me, you grew up watching with your parents, and there hopefully weren't too many parts where you're going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm watching this with my parents. And that's part of what was so enjoyable, I think, is being able to share it as a family and still, you know, enjoy that love story without it getting uncomfortable. And I would say that's what I'm trying to recreate on the page. And I see many of us authors who are in this closed door space who are really leaning into that PG-13 of it all, you know. So we're including some mild to moderate, sometimes even further than moderate swears. You know, it varies from author to author how heavy the topics are, all the sorts of things that they might put their characters through. But you know, we're kind of, I think, trying to create a space that's like goes beyond just the clear binary of like spicy and clean, you know, because there is a middle ground. There's a whole, actually quite a wide middle ground between those two descriptors, and so we're trying to more clearly carve out that niche and say, like, we're here too. This also all comes back to sort of the promise I make to my readers. Of course, as a romance author, there is the promise that there's going to be a happy ending. Like, it's not romance if it doesn't have a happy ending. But also, yeah, that I'm hoping that you would find the same vibes of those classic rom-coms that we grew up with, and the comfort that comes along with that. You know, a similar level of humor, flirtatiousness, you know, all these sorts of things. And ideally, I would say that part of what I'm aiming for in my books is that they not be the unputdownable kind, you know, where you're like, I would want to go to bed at a reasonable time, but I'm just going to keep reading this book until 4 o'clock in the morning because I can't put it down. From like a nervous system care angle, I want readers to be able to put it down and say, okay, I know I can set this book next to my bed and the characters are going to be okay until I pick it up again tomorrow and I can get the rest that I need. I realize that not writing them in that sort of addictive way might not be a great marketing decision, but just in terms of how much time I spend in the story and how much time a reader spends in the story when they're reading it, I kind of just want us all to feel a little more grounded and a little more peaceful. So if that sounds appealing, then certainly this might be the sort of thing that you would enjoy reading. So in terms of who my books are for, as I illustrated this like spectrum of, you know, from clean all the way to spicy, I would say anyone who wants to exist solely at one end of that spectrum will probably be disappointed. You know, if you solely want to read books that are clean, there will be language and implied things that you might not enjoy. Also, if you want to read things that are like if it must be spicy, again, you will also be disappointed. But if you're comfortable existing in that middle space, then that's exactly where they live. And it is a space that anyone is welcome. At this time, I have 4. I have one book that is free in exchange for an email address, which I always link below my videos, and I have 3 others that are free on the retailers right now. So if it's the sort of thing you think you might enjoy but you're not entirely sure, then there are very low stakes ways for you to check it out and see if it might be something that you enjoy. And if you do, then you're in luck because I have a whole bunch of them and more coming. And if the sorts of books that I write aren't for you, then the wonderful thing about the romance space is there truly, truly is something for everyone. And I don't mean there's just like one something for everyone. I mean, whatever sorts of books you like to read, you will find so many. More than any one of us can read. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you here again soon.